my phone. There it is. Okay, good morning. Welcome to the Deschutes County Board of Commissioners meeting. This is 9 a.m. Wednesday, December 11th, 2024. Commissioner Dare is not joining us this morning, so there'll be the two of us. First item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item on the agenda is citizen input. So Carl Shoemaker, thank you very much for joining us.
Hello, I'm Carl. I live in Bend. There was a time in the dream time before the word was God, before numbers told us how to live, before religion ruled. Thank you.
Thank you. And following is Mr. Ron Bozell.
Good morning. I'm Rondo. I've lived in Bend for 35 years. And I'm here to talk about something that everybody's talking about the last month or so in Redmond, and should be the conversation we're having in Deschutes County. To ban or not to ban? That's the question. At least it was a question, it is the question in Redmond, whether or not we should have fireworks freely used by private citizens in Redmond. And I believe that we should have that same conversation in Deschutes County. Matter of fact, I do not know the vote, if it was in fact taken last night. Don't know what it is, but I suggest that there's a third option. I'm not a fan of prohibition. I don't think we should ever have that conversation to ban or not to ban. We're living in a democratic republic, and we should have important decisions like this made by the people. And I would like you to represent that conversation. Bend is not paradise, and I hope it never will be. I know that everybody in this room is very concerned about fire danger. And to me, in my own personal opinion, I think that people drinking alcohol should not throw explosives into the air above our neighbors' houses. And that we allow that would not be considered prohibition. So I suggest a democratic, bureaucratic solution. I say, let's create a licensing fee, a huge licensing fee for one-time use at a time and location of the user's choice. If they want to throw up fireworks so badly that this is something they consider an example of their freedom, then the rest of us should say that it is our freedom to put an extra tax on that behavior, because we know how busy the fire department is that night. We have seen people actually go to jail for causing damage with fires, like on Pilot Butte about 5-6 years ago, or every year. I think it's time for us to take that kind of responsibility and have this body make that decision for Redmond, for Sisters, for Lapine, for Bend, for the rest of us in this county. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Joining us.
And I'll just mention that we did do an analysis of this a few years ago. I asked then County Forester Ed Keith to run some numbers for me, basically show me the data on ignitions and, you know, the importance of fireworks in fire ignitions in the county. And that study indicated that the place where there was a real problem was inside the city of Bend. So if you want to email me, I'd be happy to send you that information.
Okay, is there anyone else for citizen input in the room and not online? I see. Okay, thank you very much. Next is the consent agenda, half a dozen items here,
Move approval of the consent agenda.
and I will second it. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Chang
Yes.
and Vice Chair will vote yes.
I will, maybe I should have said this before we voted to approve it, but item number 6, the letter to Lauren Kellogg, that Lauren's name is spelled wrong. It's Loren. So if we can correct that one before we,
Before we sign a letter to her.
Him.
Good catch.
and Lauren is a he,
There we go.
former professor from the College of Forestry at
Yep.
OSU.
Great, thank you. At this time, item number 7, property tax exemption application for Huntington Apartments at 51771 Huntington Road, Lapine.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm hopeful that we have the applicant who's seeking the property tax exemption available online and ready to present the proposal. Our Chief Financial Officer, Robert Tintle, is also here to help answer any questions about the financial analysis that they submitted. And I know he helped them understand the impacts, the financial impacts of the proposal as well. So I'm just looking back to Eric to see if they are here and online, and they're not here to present the proposal. So, yeah.
Yeah, let's go on to the next agenda item. We'll come back to this in a few minutes, see if somebody wants to join us online, and if not, we can come back to it. So with that, we'll go to item number 8, Sheriff's Office request for opioid settlement funds. And thank you very much for joining us. And some familiar faces. We just did a annual jail tour as the Board of Commissioners, so we saw all of you last week.
Yeah, it was a great tour. Thanks for coming. I'm Captain Michael Schultz. With
Go ahead and grab the mic in front of you a little better, just. There you go.
Better?
Yeah, just directional. Yep.
I'm Captain Michael Schultz with the Sheriff's Office, and I'm joined by my 2 professionals, Jessica Vanderpool, who is our budget manager, and as well as Eden Aldrich, who is our medical director of the jail. And as you see in front of you, as we were looking at our 2025 budget, we saw a need, and we also saw a potential to solve that need. And so we're here for the request, as you've seen in the agenda, of us looking for the opioid use, our opioid fund settlements to help us in the jail as we move through this complicated system with drug addiction and individuals coming into our jail. As you know, individuals that come into our jail, you know, if you look online with the National Association of Sheriffs, it's estimated about 75% of individuals in jails around the country have either opioid use or addiction issues and mental health combined, and all 3 of them. When we did our study, we've talked about, and I've presented before, when we looked at that study of the individuals in the day of, we're at about 90% of individuals that suffer from drug usage and or mental health issues as we battle that issue in our community and specifically in our jail as we work with them. So I'm joined with Jessica. She'll have the numbers on our request, and our medical director, Eden, is here for any questions that you may have as we go through. We'll go ahead and turn over to Jessica.
So we have an agreement with Ideal Options. So they had received grant funding to cover the MAT program. That at the rate that we are using those funds tied to the MAT, so the medication and the LPNs, we're going to run out of that grant funding before the end of the fiscal year. So part of the request that we have in front of you is to kind of help to subsidize that difference from what we're going to get through the grant of Ideal Options, and then the balance of what we're anticipating the extra opioid medication to cost. So we're looking at maybe about 130,000 additional funds that we need to run the MAT program itself. And in addition, we are hoping to receive some funding to cover the cost of one of our RNs within the facility, because we believe that with the numbers and the number of people that we have that we're supporting with opioid use disorder, that we're definitely utilizing at least one FTE in support of treatment and other options that they need.
Yes, as we looked at this, Jessica has been working with Cam with the county, and that's where we got the suggestion to come here today. And, with that, we wanted to make sure that we're following all the rules of those funds. So we've looked at Exhibit E and we've talked about those, and all of those fall within the example of what those funds can be used. My counterparts around the state are all using it for MAT programs and other deflection programs. So this would be very helpful as we manage through this 2025 budget, as we get closer to that, to make sure that we're settled in. And of course, we're looking at every cost saving possible to shore up any areas with the economy changing. And so we know those are going to be impacts for all of us. Even with my teammates in other departments, it's going to be a struggle, as we know. So.
Well, I'll just say this is an excellent program. So glad that we are doing medication assisted treatment in our jail in Deschutes County. And I want to be able to support this. My only concerns are about whether this is taking funds away from other allocations of assisted treatment. The medication assisted treatment is happening through Measure 110 funding, and it sounds like that it is not sufficient to do the program at the scale that we needed to. So we need to figure out how to cover that shortfall. And I just want to make sure that this is the right place to be taking the funds from to do that. Cam, I would love to hear a little bit about what how previously we have allocated these opioid settlement funds, and whether there's additional funds available at this point that we're able to work from, or whether this would be cutting into other allocations.
Yes, Cam Sparks, budget manager, for the record. No, this would not be taking away from other allocations. We are projecting the fund will have about 1.6 million at the end of this fiscal year. We have allocated approximately 786,000 this fiscal year to health services, and then there's 50,000 going to community justice. But there is capacity within the fund to allocate funds for their request.
So 1.6 million in the bank and 760,000 of allocations.
Correct. And actually, we will have 1.6 million after those allocations.
Okay, got it. That's great. And is that because I know that there were early settlements, and then there was sort of additions as or I forget the legal term, but the entities who were having to pay
Right.
pay out.
Settlements.
Is that because there was of those additional settlements that were kind of added at a later point?
Correct. We continue to receive, we received $1 million last year in revenue. We're anticipating $529,000 in revenue this year, and about $500,000 going forward through fiscal year 39.
Okay. So my one other question is, this is a request of 283,000 for the remainder of this fiscal year. So half a fiscal year. So for the DCSO staff, do you anticipate that there will be an ongoing need for these funds, or is this, just for this fiscal year?
Right now, we're just looking at this fiscal year. As we look at the need, this program has been in operation for about 2 years. And, of course, it was brand new. We knew we were getting vulnerable people coming to our jail. And I think, Eden, you probably can talk about those individuals. The hope is that we solve some of this problem with Measure 14002 coming, that has changed the law. We were hoping, and with deflection, we start seeing a decline of individuals. We know the medication's expensive. We didn't know how expensive when we first got the grant. We know it is now. And that's what we're kind of shoring up in our grant process. And, you know, I know Eden's prepared to talk all day long on, you know, on what type of medication, Suboxone, Sublocade. We know Sublocade is the medication that works for us, especially with individuals really wanting a chance, because Suboxone, we're finding it's being misused throughout the community. Sublocade is very difficult, but you know, even now there's a new medication out there that's coming in behind that will help opioid use addicted folks tremendously. And so we don't know what's coming into the future, but really this is our year that we're shoring up our budget.
Right. And again, you know, I, particularly since we had some discussion the other day, during our jail tour, you know, I'm fully sold on the importance of medication assisted treatment programs and really excited about the success we're having with helping people leave jail, you know, in a much, much better place to be able to resist relapse coming out of there. So so thank you for all of that. And we should, you know, since the public didn't have the opportunity to hear everything that we heard the other day during our jail tour, we probably should have Eden kind of run through some of the programmatic discussion for us. I wanted to get right to the financials.
Yeah, thank you. You know, so we started this MAT program a couple of years ago. I was doing it on a less formal level before we brought Ideal Options in. I mean, obviously we recognize that, you know, opiate use disorder is a huge problem among our community. And especially, you know, we really know that we struggle with it with our incarcerated patients. I mean, certainly people that are coming into jail are some of the most complicated. They're the ones that are some of the most addicted, and they need help. And I'm not saying that, you know, an MAT program is 100% or is the absolute solution. But, you know, one of the things that we are very confident about is, you know, we're using a fair amount of this injectable buprenorphine, which is also called Sublocade, or Brixadi is another, another type of medication. And these are long-acting injectable buprenorphine medications that are indicated for the treatment of opiate use disorder. And one of the benefits of that is, even within the county, we see a lot of diversion of oral buprenorphine. So that medication comes in tablets and it comes in strips. Unfortunately, we're even seeing street drugs that contain that medication in it now, because people are diverting it. You know, it's like, it would be kind of like if you were given a prescription for Vicodin or Percocet, and now you're sharing it with your friend. We are seeing that a lot with buprenorphine. The benefit of these injectable medications is they're not divertible once they're injected. I mean, ideally, there's some very initial chances for some diversion, but generally speaking, they are not divertible. And they build up in the patient's system over time, meaning when we release them from custody, once they have had several doses of medication, they are protected from overdose for many months. And that's a huge thing. And especially when someone's being released from custody, we know their chance of overdose is higher because their tolerance, if they've been in jail for 30 days, their tolerance to the amount that they were using before has decreased. And so that's always, I mean, as administrators, we know that that's a huge danger time to patients who are opiate addicted that are being released from custody. And these medications can help save them without a doubt. And we still see patients that are coming in who continue, unfortunately, to use on the outside. But I really believe that with this if they didn't have this medication on board, they would probably be dead.
Yeah, so I'm supportive of this. This is great that we have these resources available. It seems like a good fit. So I'm very supportive of this whole ask here also. And it is kind of the balance of the resources we have, but also with that partnership with Ideal Options, understanding people that are in and out of custody it is a scary transition. Absolutely. So yeah, thanks for asking about the finances. That's exactly where I was going to go.
Yeah. If you don't have any other
Nope.
questions, I can move approval of the requested use of $283,000 in opioid settlement funds by the sheriff's office.
And I will second it. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Chang
Yes.
and Vice Chair votes yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for just continuing to innovate for our sheriff's office and our jail.
So with a little bit more time behind us, let's go back to item number 7, property tax exemption application. Has somebody joined us on that? Okay. So this is the property tax exemption application for Huntington Apartments at 51771 Huntington Road in Lapine. I see Robert's joining us, and then George.
Yes, we had a few technical difficulties.
Oh, not a problem.
unfortunately, So we were not able to have the applicant join, and they should be available now. And we have Robert here as well. So hopefully Mackenzie's able to provide some opening remarks and summarize the proposal and request, and we'll be available to answer questions. Thank you.
And starting off, the packet did mention a 10-year tax exemption and a 20-year tax exemption, so we can clarify that right up front. I don't know who.
Hello. Hi, it's Mackenzie. Can you hear me?
Great. Good morning. Yes.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having us. I'm here with George Schmidbauer, who was a co-developer on this project. I'm from Danco Communities, and we're an affordable housing developer out of Arcata, California. And this project that we're talking about today is the Huntington Apartments. It's a 60-unit affordable housing project for families at or below 60% of the area median income living in Oregon. And the project is, it's on a site on Huntington in Lapine, and it's on a 4.7 acre site. And the project is 9 garden style apartment buildings with 1 community building. We're currently under construction and aiming to be starting leasing up the units by June of 2025. So what we're coming to request today is property tax exemption for the project. We have been going through the process with the city of Lapine since last year to achieve this. The city of Lapine has passed a program in the community that would allow for this type of a project to receive the property tax exemption. And they've also conditionally approved the project to be property tax exempt earlier this year, with the stipulation that we would get 51% concurrence from all of the other assessment jurisdictions, which we have. We just got our approval from the school board last night, which I think it's in the 40-something% of the percent of the total of the jurisdictions that were required. And we've also talked to another school board and various other jurisdictions that were involved, and everybody has been supportive of this so far. So this is the last meeting that we're going to be having for this project, and then applying through the city again for the tax exemption in the new year. So I know that there was a little bit of confusion around 10 or 20 years. The city of Lapine did approve a 20-year exemption, and so sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's 20, but we're going for a 20-year here, and so we apologize for that confusion. The project is going to be affordable for 15 years and is going to remain affordable for families at or below the 60% of the area median income. And I'll pass it to George to see if he has anything else that he'd like to add.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mackenzie. I guess to first speak to the 10 versus 20 year, from our side, it's always been the 20-year exemption, which is spelled out in ORS 307.515 to 307.523, which is the affordable housing tax exemption. And I think the confusion came, someone at the county had sent Mackenzie an example letter, which was referencing a nonprofit tax exemption, which is a different section of the code. And that's a 10-year property tax exemption. And so the letter kind of got messed up, and we eventually changed that code reference to the 307.515, which you can see as long as the units are staying below 60% of the area median income, then they're eligible for that property tax exemption for 20 years.
Great, thank you. So, as I say, it looks like the city of Lapine was always on board
Yes.
with this 20 and in that scenario. So I can see that, yeah, somehow it just started off on a 10-year path for our packet. Any
Mhm.
other thoughts, Robert? And
For the record, Robert Tintel, Chief Financial Officer. Yes, I did work with McKinsey on coming up with some of these numbers, and just for the board's record, for the 20-year tax exemption, if the project over the 20-year period cumulative, if the project is not billed, the total taxes during that 20 years would be $58,000. If the project is built, the taxes would be approximately 2.3 million. That equates to an exemption over the 20-year period of about $2.2 million. Approximately Deschutes County share over that period would be of the 20 years would be 598,000. In year 21, when it comes back on the roll, that we would receive the 41,000, approximately 41,000 in taxes when it comes back on the tax
Annually.
roll in year 21. And again, these are estimates based on assessed value of $12.8 million, as well as just assuming assessed value increases 3% per year. So it's a lot of estimates, but it's typically what we receive when we receive these requests for exemptions.
well, in support of the city of Lapine and their efforts and having that land available, I'll be supportive of this. It is kind of pre-approved before it even got here because of last night's choices at the school district. So we're in that situation once again, but which is fine.
I'm a huge advocate for affordable housing. And I understand that it is very difficult to build and operate affordable housing without some kind of subsidy. So come into this with with generally sympathetic to this type of request. I do have a couple of questions I'd like to ask. And the first one is oftentimes with tax exemption or other kind of subsidy requests that we receive, we get to see a whole financial package that it basically describes or lays out how the project wouldn't be economically viable without the tax exemption. So I'm wondering, like, I didn't see that in this packet. I'm wondering if that's been done for the city of Lapine or for the Bend Lapine School District or anyone else, just so we can at least feel that someone has done their due diligence on looking at your numbers to verify that this is a necessary tax exemption.
Yeah, and apologies for not getting that in here. We went through significant review with the city, and the city actually didn't have an ordinance in place to allow this property tax exemption. So we first had to get that established and then go for an approval. And the city manager, Jeff, it was about a 6-month process, and he brought in attorneys to review this. And we could send the packet over that the city had to show that. But it's really these property tax exemptions are really standard for these types of projects, and often if a project can't secure it, then it won't move forward. The only alternative would be you'd have to reduce your debt in order to pay the property taxes on the project, and it would be significant reduction. So then there would be a financing gap in the project. The only way you could fill that would be by going for additional grant funds, which is also taxpayer money, but just harder to get, and the project could be sitting for years trying to compete for that. So it's a pretty easy story to tell, and we could share that packet if you like.
Great. Yeah, I know the story well and have followed it for other projects. It would be great to see the specific numbers for this project, and that's, knowing that Jeff Wolfschlager, kind of ran through this process with you and did the due diligence is I'm glad to hear that. So that was my first question. My second question was about ensuring the long-term affordability of these units. I am curious whether there's going to be deed restrictions put in place or what the mechanisms are that you're putting in place to ensure the long-term affordability of these units.
Yeah, there will be a tax credit regulatory agreement for the project, which will be a deed restriction for 55 years.
Great. And that's at that'll set the rent for these units at 60% or lower AMI. Is that correct?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. Well, those are all my questions. Those were totally sufficient and adequate answers. Thank you very much.
I drove by this property last night. I was at the high school for their CTE promotion efforts, and I drive by it regularly, so I know exactly the project we're talking about here. With that, is there a motion?
Sorry, I had the wrong thing in front of me. We don't have a specifically worded recommended motion, but I will say move approval of the application from Danco Communities for a property tax exemption relating to the Huntington Apartments at 51771 Huntington Road in Lapine.
And I will second it.
Commissioner Chang, if I may, could you also speak to the 20-year specific tax
there you go,
exemption?
Yeah,
Now
so
that we've-
modifying my motion to make that a 20-year property tax exemption.
And I will second it. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
Any other hearing none, Commissioner Chang.
Yes.
And Vice Chair votes yes. Thank you very much for joining us. Congratulations on the project. And I know getting the infrastructure in, getting the first buildings built, now finishing up the next buildings is the big picture at this point in time, and working through the winter.
You know very well.
That's it.
Thank you
all
so much
very
for
Thank you.
Thank you so much for working to provide affordable housing, much needed affordable housing in our community.
Of course. Thank you.
Have a great day. Item number 9, Shepherd's House Grant Agreement for use of ARPA funds. So this is a item for clarity.
Yes, thank you. Laura Skundrick, Management Analyst. So at the board meeting on November 13th, you had allocated $225,000 from the General Fund ARPA Reserve Funds for Shepherd's House expansion of their Abby's House program. That is their program that houses women and children. These funds supported the purchase of a 1-bedroom home, and their original request was in today's materials for reference if needed. So in working with Assistant Legal Counsel Kim Riley to draft this agreement, she suggested adding some parameters as a safeguard to protect the use of the home, as was proposed and was approved. So we're here today to present those options and seek board direction. So obviously Kim Riley is here with us today. She can help answer any detailed questions about these options. We also have Jerry Capping, the Shepherd's House Director of Development, with us in the room if you have any questions about their operations or timeline. So we can get started with the options that legal has suggested. The first is a deed restriction or restrictive covenant limiting the use of the property, which would record when they purchase the property. Second, we could add to that a reversionary interest to the deed restriction. And the third option is a prorated reduction of repayment of funds if operations were to stop. So if you have any questions or any more detail about any of those options,
Great.
we're here.
We hear from Shepherd's House. Anything fit better, fit the model better, or just as a starting point? Joining us.
For the record, Jerry Capping with Shepherd's House. What was the question? I'm sorry.
So either deed restriction or reversionary interest or, whatever the third, terminology.
Reduction of repayment funds.
Yeah, could you clarify the deed restriction?
Right, it would basically be a restriction on the use of the property for a set period of time, and that would get recorded when the property is purchased.
Yeah, that would probably be the option that we would be most favorable for us.
And has this property hasn't been purchased yet?
No, we're in the process right now. We actually close on Friday.
Okay.
And what if you have more questions?
No, go ahead. Yes.
I
guess. So is this, now we have, the person we're deeding to, is part of this discussion. I don't know. Is there any problems with the protocol here?
No issue.
Yeah,
there.
okay. I'm just making sure.
Making a decision. Again, there were no parameters when the initial allocation was made, but given that these are public funds, it's really at your discretion on whether or not you want to put some type of parameters around that. And so I don't see any issue with engaging with the
Great.
the grantee.
Making sure, as I was thinking about that as it's happening. Good.
Yeah, no, it's so, yeah, in my mind, the amount of conditions that we put on should be proportional to our investment in the project. So, I mean, if we are a primary investor in the project, then, I think it's appropriate for us to put some conditions on. If we're a minor player in the project, I'm not so sure. I don't know how many conditions we would want to put on. So can I ask about that kind of the overall project cost and where these 225,000 fit in?
You bet, Commissioner Chan. I appreciate that. The overall project was $2.25 million. We have purchased one of the homes already through a generous donor. We're in the process of closing on 4 more of those units this Friday. And then we'll have 2 additional units will close hopefully by April 1st. So the grand total is 2.25 million. This specific unit is 275,000.
And did you say 7 units total?
7 units total, correct.
2.25 million, 7 units.
Yeah, and I can tell you guys, we're so thankful. The reality is we get 5 to 7 calls every week from women wanting shelter. Right now we can house 8, 9 if they have 1 child. And we do right now. We're completely full. And so this opens up an opportunity for us to house around 25 to 30 women based on their situation, right? And it's kind of a legacy project for Shepherd's House, and we're so thankful for your guys' consideration and your approval of our grant.
Yeah.
Well, it just kind of dropped right in and it worked out well. So
yeah. So for Kim, is it if 225,000 is a lot of 275,000? I mean, is it thus possible for us to set conditions just around the one?
Absolutely.
The one property as opposed to the other 6?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And commissioners, I did check in with Commissioner Adair before she left, and she would support a 10-year, some sort of measure, one of the options of 10 years to just ensure that the home is continued to be used as we're allocating funds for it to be used. But we didn't get into a lot of the specifics.
Well, I support something like that too. Just a period of time during this commitment, knowing that the need is there, and then empowering Shepherd's House to, be able to use this free and clear, and someday in the future, because I'm sure the mission will be the same. Or even if it changes, that'll be an asset that can be utilized in its highest and best use. This is a kind of a generic statement, but we'll figure out. What was the terminology on the third thing she mentioned?
The third option would be some type of prorated amount that would reduce any type of repayment obligation based on the number of years of operation. We did something similar just recently with Jackson House, where basically as long as they maintained operations for 20 years, $100,000 was deducted every year of operation. So there could be something similar like that. The concern obviously would be if it becomes insolvent, obviously the ability to collect anything like that, if they stopped operations, the likelihood of collecting something is probably minimal.
And that would work in conjunction with the deed restriction.
Would be separate and apart from that. So we would just have a 10 or 20-year grant agreement and in place with,
So that's an alternative to the deed restriction.
that's correct.
Well, could a deed restriction be put in place for a period of time to expire at a certain time?
Absolutely. and we
Yeah,
do that
okay, yeah.
Quite regularly, especially when we donate property. We have deed restrictions for affordable housing that automatically terminate after a set period
Yeah.
of time.
I mean, for $225,000, 10 years, 15 years seems pretty reasonable to me. So I would support 10 years or up to 15 years, maybe.
So, yeah, as a starting point, so 10 years is going to be fine with me. As I say, got to imagine the need and the, purpose is going to be there in some fashion in 10 years and 15 years, with Commissioner Adair's input at 10 years as a starting point. So, what tools then at this point? So, a deed restriction, I mean, just a clear deed restriction may be the simple way to go, just knowing that there's just a date in the future. Prorated is going to be just another level of kind of, well, maybe it's just a simple piece of paper. You never have to review if it doesn't go off track.
With the grant agreement, you'd probably want some type of annual reporting or something along that, just so that we're aware that it's continuing its operations. So if you had a 20-year grant agreement, you might have an annual reporting.
Yeah, so that would be the only requirement. So do you want to see the annual check-in or not? I guess I wouldn't. I'm comfortable with a simple deed restriction.
I think I'm comfortable with a simple deed restriction as well. It would be great to hear about the project maybe for a couple years
Oh,
after it is implemented.
Yeah,
But
no problem with that. I'm already in contact with Patty quite often, and so either one of you could also email me, or I could email you a report, just kind of a basic report showing how many times a lady or a child has stayed in that facility, how many days of the year, that sort of thing.
yeah, or if you're open to it, maybe just coming back after a year,
Yeah.
year after purchase or after opening and giving us a report back.
100%, we can do that.
So a 10-year deed restriction with just a kind of an expectation of the one-time reporting, but the cultural expectation, the community expectation of we'll be working together this whole period anyways.
And
Very
that's
good, thank you.
And that's less because we want to check up on you and more because it's just nice for us to hear about the impact of investments that we make.
Yeah, and this is going to be a major impact, guys, so I really appreciate it.
Right now,
so
too.
much.
No, Shepherd's House has been, such a leader in our community in helping, the housing insecure of all stripes and colors. So thank you so much for your work. Thank you for leaning into projects like these to help address the massive need in our community.
So as I say, I'm just thinking motion would be 10-year deed restriction with review 1 year from something from.
I'm not just. Do we have to write the 1 year review into the? I mean, I think we can just.
10 years.
Make note of that.
Yeah. Okay. Just with a note. There we go.
Okay. So the motion would be okay. So I'll move to approve a 10-year deed restriction as a condition of agreement for the grant that we are providing to Shepherd's House.
And I will second it. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Chang
Yes.
and Vice Chair will vote yes. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go close it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excited to hear about the project moving forward.
Okay, other items. Anything else for today? Commissioner Chang?
I'll just mention that I attended the Outdoor Recreation Summit last week that for the state that was held in Sun River. There was a lot of interest in a lot of interest in what we're interested in is in maintaining visitation and transient room tax revenue for the region. One of the things that a number of people talked to me about during the summit was the campground proposals that the county was exploring earlier. So to the extent that there's opportunities to continue to consider those, that is an important consideration for our tourism industry in the region. I also attended the City Club's forum on the potential purchase of Mount Bachelor. That was very interesting. It was interesting to hear about from the kind of corporate ski industry side, the potential likely purchasers of Mount Bachelor, and then also to hear about the proposal for a community, a community project to purchase and have community ownership of Mount Bachelor. This Monday, I was at the Oregon Business Plan Summit and attended some good sessions, afternoon sessions on both the transportation package that'll be coming through the legislature and on the likely water legislation for the coming year. That's about all I have.
Okay, so I am going to travel to Salem this afternoon and I'll be there tomorrow. This is legislative days, a couple different topics. I've got a few meetings set up, and from yesterday's budget meeting, looking forward to talking to folks about, some of the PERS costs going up and just how our budget's evolving. So just getting information to our legislators on the ground. Also representing Core 3 for a bill that includes two sections. One of them basically mentions a whole bunch of state departments, and it's a legislative kind of thumbs up to participate with Core 3. So that's the legislation. And then also a fiscal ask. Representative Levy has put this bill together in its current form. We saw a version of it. So looking forward to saying hi to everybody in Salem this afternoon and tomorrow. Attended the, as I say, CTE efforts in Lapine High School. So this is a high school education path, but it's a community effort in Lapine right now. Construction, wood shop, welding, medical careers. There's all kinds of CTE things that are just percolating there, and they're just looking for some more resources. Also, a letter has been requested for a bill for Congressman Bentz's that 40 acres at Finley Butte. So this is for Commissioner Chang, for you and I to discuss. Can we get to a letter of support for a bill that just mentions clear transfer, 40 acres aggregate for economic development purposes? And I know last time we spoke about it, you talked about, why don't we talk about trading land or whatever, but this bill has been created. It was sent back through the Forest Service, is my understanding, just to acknowledge the location, just the footprint of a 40-acre parcel. SLED mentioned it yesterday. I sent the emails to Patricia for the Sun River Lapine Economic Development Group for a letter of support there. And I don't know what the status is, but I got that going. So any thoughts?
The land would go to the city, or would go to us, or would go to a private entity?
It'd go to the county, clear title to Deschutes County for the purpose of economic development. As I say, it's a known hard rock source. So it's previously been ODOT certified, the up to that edge of the private property that's next to it. There'd be no expectation or strings about who. It would just be a private market sale for Deschutes County. So that's the vision here, is Congressman thinks he can, and it's been packaged with a Hood River parcel too. I don't know details about it, but another parcel. So two parcels, simple little, bill has been proposed, and it's just looking for letter of support.
What's the price tag? If you said it's a simple free market sale, so what would be the cost to the county to acquire this property?
Nothing.
So it's not a sale, it's a conveyance.
So yeah, that's receiving as a conveyance. I was referring to selling it on the private market from us. The intention would be for us to put it on the market for a hard rock supply. So yeah, two different, the incoming and outgoing. So you're saying a conveyance to Deschutes County
We would,
at
we-
zero.
we would keep it and let people you know, get permits or what have you to mine there, or we would turn around and sell it.
To be determined, but my vision is turn around and sell it. So it's co-located with another private property, obviously. That private property has been in that business for 50 years, Vic Russell Construction. So it's not intended for anybody specific, but being co-located with previous operations, it would be an opportunity in the market for somebody to bid on it for a clear title at market rate for that aggregate supply is the vision, but we need to work that out because we would have the clear title.
I would prefer for us to either purchase or exchange for such a property. I mean, it's from a community perspective, that could provide great benefits from a, you know, from the perspective as a federal taxpayer as well. You know, that is giving away a federal resource for nothing, which I don't, you know, that the people of the United States should get something out of this as well, to compensate for their interest. So I mean, we have, you know, for example, we have a bunch of really wet land in the floodplain of the lower Deschutes River, sorry, the Little Deschutes River, right in that neck of the woods, and you know, Congress could legislate a very direct and simple land exchange for us. You know, if you say, look, don't do an assessment, don't do an appraisal, don't do NEPA, don't do this, Congress can do that, and I think that that's a more fair deal for the people of the United States than just giving it to us to sell to a private entity. That's just my perspective on that. I do.
So you're not supportive of the idea as it's presented?
No. You know, if that's just based, I'm open to hearing more. I'm open to the you know, hearing the congressman or the city or whoever else kind of add to the story, but just kind of from what I've heard, that doesn't, it's not, it's a good deal for the community, but it's not fair to the taxpayers of the United States. And when the Forest Service has mineral resources, I know it's not you know, it's not as easy as private ownership, but the Forest Service is able to lease land for mineral extraction. So I don't fully understand what you know, what the problem is with you know, going through that path of, you know, maintaining federal ownership either.
So there's some history here. As I say, Vic Russell, the property owner next to this, has asked many times to the Forest Service, how do I get this access? What's a conveyance look like? What does mineral rights look like? You know, he's asked for about 5 years, and there's many letters back saying that there's no path in our world for this. And very generic statement on my part. There's letters that talk about all kinds of things. So yeah, this is, you know, stepping to the federal level just to make a clear transition. But yeah, I mean, it looks like we're going to see it differently here. There's a lot of history. I mean, if you want to study it about why the answer keeps being no. So
I would love to have someone present that to me. You know, I mean,
yeah, that's fine.
you know, I'm open to
Multiple letters
receiving
from
the
Forest Service to the.
I'm open to receiving the information. You know, I don't necessarily, since the request is being made to the Board of Commissioners, I don't think it's I don't think it's too much to ask to have the proponents present the information to me.
Very good.
And like I said, you know, something like a land exchange could be very simple as well. If we want to have this resource, we have land that we're doing absolutely nothing with in that area that, you know, has substantial natural resource values that, you know, that I would be comfortable transferring to federal, you know, to exchanging for federal ownership.
Okay, yeah. So yeah,
Not as-
no letter of
it's
support
Just as
today.
easy as a conveyance bill.
Yeah. Okay, so with that, I don't have anything else. Anything else? Seeing none, meeting adjourned.